Welcome everyone to episode 3 of the SSBC Digital Series. We are very excited to have with us Sharon Otterman today. She's the Chief Marketing Officer of William Hill, one of the largest growing sports books in the United States and globally as well. Sharon, just want to say thank you from our entire team for dedicating your time today and also for being willing to be a panelist at the original event that unfortunately had to be canceled in April. We graciously appreciate all of your help.
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't be in Syracuse. I wanted some dinosaur barbecue and was looking forward to getting up there. So,
absolutely. With that, we'll hand it over to you, Professor Denninger, and thank you again, Sharon. We really appreciate all of your help.
Yeah.
Thanks, Evan, and thanks to your group for putting this together and for showing the initiative to continue even after we had to cancel the big event. And Sharon, we'll get you some dinosaur barbecue down the road, I'm sure of it. Sharon and I worked at ESPN together way back in the dark ages. I think that was junior achievement television back then, right? We were both very young. Yeah. I want to start off by asking Sharon, how is William Hill managing without any live competitions for people to bet on right now?
Well, there's no live competitions in the US, but there is around the world, and we're a global company. And so 80% of our handle this week has been on table tennis, or as we affectionately call it, ping pong. We've done very well with. There's soccer in Nicaragua. There is Belarus hockey. And so there's there's darts going on right now. So we've looked outside the US, and one of the advantages of being a global company is that there are sports going on around the world, not just here. So
can you just give us just a little bit of a thumbnail about how William Hill Company got started, where it got started, and how it got to be the global presence that it is?
It's actually a fun story, because in 1934, a man by the name of William Hill had the conviction and the vision that this could actually be a legal sports betting industry. He was one of many, he had a lot of brothers and sisters. He was really poor, and he loved horse racing and would go to the track, and all of the sports betting was black market back in those days. And he believed it could be something. So he used to ride through his motorbike through the streets of London, taking bets and going to people's homes. He actually did the first mobile betting on a telephone back in London in the 30s, and built his first shop above a hat shop on Jermyn Street in London. That actually gave way to betting shops all across the UK and Europe for many, many years. So if you've ever been over there, and on every street corner there's a William Hill or a Ladbrokes or a Coral, all those guys were the first ones to really start betting and betting shops legally. In 2012, the UK got very nervous that sports betting was getting very regulated in that market, and were concerned about the future of sports betting. And they knew at some point the US would have it be legal again. They just didn't know when. So William Hill came into the US and bought up 3 little sports books. One of those sports books was named Lucky's, after our CEO's dog named Lucky, and combined those 3 little bookmakers together to be William Hill US. They put our CEO, Joe Asher, as CEO of the entire company. And we were a Nevada bookmaking company from 2012 to 2018. Out of the 190 casinos that exist in the state of Nevada, we're in 114 of them. So we've really been around in the US for a long time, and we were well positioned in 2018 when the Supreme Court was able to repeal the law that prohibited the states from accepting sports betting. We were able to launch pretty quickly in these legalized states because we had such a foothold in Nevada.
Yeah, that's remarkable. I remember New Jersey is the state that pressed that originally, and William Hill had the sports book at Monmouth Park.
That's right.
Right? And so the governor of New Jersey, the first bet after the Supreme Court decision came down, and I think he bet on me to win the World Cup or something in soccer, right? It was a winning bet, so William Hill made out that one, I think.
We did pretty well. I was actually there that day. I had gotten my offer ready to start, but it wasn't public yet. So I was there incognito at Monmouth Park just to be there, because it was such a historic day. about a year before, we set up a sports bar at Monmouth, knowing at some point it could be legal. So we were ready to go. All we had to do was actually turn on the switch. And so we wanted to take the first bet, New Jersey. It was important because Chris Christie, the governor at the, and Patrick Murphy, the governor of New Jersey, were very much about getting sports betting legalized, and we wanted to support those efforts. So Monmouth is still one of our best books in the country.
Well, it's obvious that wagering services need sports. How much does sports need wagering?
Well, sports needs wagering. It's actually funny. You're talking about working together at ESPN. It was a big part of the ESPN plan back in the day. And that was in 2003, 2004. We knew that you would watch more Sports Center if you had a vested interest in it. You would watch ESPN News if you had a vested interest. You would get a subscription to ESPN Insider. And we know that what's going to sustain sports and help with the ratings and all of the broadcast rights is for people to be more engaged. And you have to be more engaged when your team's out of it. I'm a Knicks fan. I'm a Giants fan. I need to have a vested interest to keep me through my seasons a lot of times. And so it's critical to the growth of sports. And that's why the leagues have really changed their tune about legalized sports betting, because they know that they need it for television ratings and engagement.
Now, how do the partnerships that William Hill has and other sports betting agencies have, the partnerships with leagues and with teams, how does that work?
Yeah, so it's all different, but I would think of it as we are a sponsor just the way that Budweiser would be a sponsor, but we use our sponsorship in different ways. So our New Jersey Devils relationship, we use when fans were in the building, we had a William Hill Sports Lounge that was in the building, and you would come to the William Hill Sports Lounge, there'd be odds displays, and we would have these brand ambassadors that would talk to customers and teaching them how to bet and help them download their app on the phone. It's not the easiest app to sign up for in our sports betting industry because not all the payment providers have signed on to take sports betting wagering. So sometimes you'll go through, put your credit card through, and like, why aren't I getting accepted? So we found the best way to get people to sign up and get them through the conversion process is to have these brand ambassadors at sporting events to help people sign up. So huge reason why we did some of the deals that we did, the Devils and the Golden Knights. In other markets, it's different. We are the official sports betting partner of the Washington, of the Capitals, and of the Wizards, and of the Mystics in DC. And that's because we're going to be the first official sports book in a professional sports arena when the arena opens up again. And so that was a reason for that sponsorship. Our league deals are also because in some ways we're not only a sponsor, but we're also a licensed partner. We can use official marks, we can use official data, things that, same thing an apparel company would want to be an official licensee. We look at our business as needing to be licensed and have the official as well.
The league's benefit. You mentioned that they've kind of changed their tune. What is the benefit for the league to partner with one wagering agency like William Hill as opposed to just having a free-for-all?
Yeah, they are having a free-for-all. We always say that they're the ones that are benefiting from it. So obviously the revenue is a nice piece of revenue for them. But the second piece has all really been around integrity. It's much better, everyone was nervous getting back into the conversation of integrity has come up so much, and it's come up, but it's been interesting it's been a black market for so long, and integrity was actually not an issue. Now that it's a regulated market, it should even be less of an issue. But the leagues do like to know it. Having a relationship with the leagues gets them closer to the data, make sure that we can work together on the integrity issue, making sure that nobody's working for the league or the players or anyone else can bet on sports. So having a regulated industry is much safer for the consumers. It's much safer for sports. And so that's why there's been such a big push behind it.
Now, what are the William Hill objectives for your partnership with CBS and other media organizations?
Yeah, we're really excited about our partnership with CBS. We were supposed to kick off for March Madness, which would have been really fun, but we will be kicking off in July. We believe that one of the biggest opportunities for sports betting is for customers that already play fantasy. And so a sports betting operator like us are always looking for efficient customer acquisition. And one of the best ways to get efficient customer acquisition is to try to find a like-minded target. So somebody who plays season-long fantasy, and CBS Sports is one of the best in season-long fantasy, to be able to have access to their customers to convert them to sports betting, we think is one of those like chocolate and peanut butter that go very well together.
There's the chocolate and peanut. Is that the CNPB? Is that's a in the industry?
Yeah.
You mentioned fantasy. What is the connection between fantasy sports and wagering on sports?
It's so much fun. When you look at the consumer insight of why somebody bets, it's actually not about winning money. So it's actually different than gambling. We actually don't even like the name gambling for our industry. Gambling is taking a chance. When you bet on sports or you play fantasy, the consumer insight is you actually want to be right. You watch all of this TV for all these years and watch so many games and analyze your sports data. You know exactly what Tom Brady's going to do. And when you don't, that near miss is so much fun. And so that consumer insight fuels both fantasy and sports betting, and it makes them a lot more adjacent than when you think about gambling and a slot machine or a lottery that you have a chance of something to happen, we feel is very different.
The demographics of fantasy players are very closely aligned with the demographics of the people who are sports bettors. Isn't that right? I mean, is that in the same sweet spot for your target market?
Yeah, I think there's two different kinds of fantasy players. There's the season-long fantasy, which we really like, and then there's the daily fantasy. Season-long fantasy has been the likes of CBS Sports and our old company, ESPN and Yahoo, and that matches up really, really well. Daily fantasy tends to skew a little bit younger. And same thing with sports. Sports, the more valuable customer is a little bit older. You have time to watch the game. You have money to invest in it. And so we think that season-long fantasy and sports betting line up really nicely along with the television viewing of sports as well, too.
Now, how does William Hill deal with the fact that state by state gambling is being sports betting, pardon.
Yeah.
You should use the right phrases here.
Yes.
Sports betting is being legalized by state. So you have different statutes, different regulations, a whole different administration and structure state by state. Yeah. What is the challenge for William Hill?
Well, it's funny, when we were in the office and not working at home, we had a map literally in every conference room in every office, especially having a UK parent and not knowing the difference between geographically where things are and reminding everyone. We've actually had to set it up as almost as each individual countries because the rules are different in each country. There's rules in some states like the state of New Jersey. You can sign up in your home on your app and you're good to go. States like Iowa, you actually have to go into the casino to sign up, prove your age, and then you can use mobile. In states like Mississippi, you actually have to be in the casino and use mobile in the casino. You can't even use it in the parking lot. And so each one is different. We've had to operate and scale our technology of something we built called State in a Box, where it makes it that every state that we go into that we can adapt the technology pretty easily to all the different state regulations to it and make sure that it passes all the regulatory approvals that it needs to. And we've had to figure out how we scale our marketing so that it's not as efficient to be a local advertiser, much more efficient to be a national advertiser. So how do we scale both our staff, our agencies, our spend, and our creative to still be locally relevant, but to be efficient in this market? So it has been complex.
Now, right now, there are 16 states in which legalized sports betting is operational. Right. Yeah. There are another 5 states in which it has been approved by their legislatures. but is not yet operational. So will there be a breaking point, a threshold you have to cross that'll allow you to start to do some national marketing?
Yeah.
Or is it, how is that going to affect you?
Yeah. We think the breaking point is around 22 states that it becomes more efficient to turn over to be national. What's helping us with these new states that are coming on live, and today, May 1, Colorado has gone live today. Not a lot to bet on in Colorado. I heard, I think DraftKings is doing contests about the weather today in Colorado, but Colorado went live today. What will help us is what's happening in the Midwest, that a lot of the adjacent states are starting to go live. So when an Illinois and an Indiana and an Iowa all come online next to each other, there is efficiencies there because you advertise in Chicago and our location in Indiana is literally across the border. And so you'll have efficiencies when it's next to each other. When New York finally goes legal for mobile, it will help a lot of the advertising we're doing in New York to reach New Jersey. So those adjacencies will start to help even before we go national.
Now, right after the Supreme Court decision came down, within a week or so, Commissioner of the NFL, Roger Goodell, made a statement and talked about the concerns that the league had for integrity. And in the same statement, he asked for some federal legislation, or at least federal guidance, that would make the states fall in line and each of them do kind of the same things. Is that something that you would like to see? Is that something that ever is going to happen?
No. Look, I think that the states have been pretty good. A lot of them are looking at New Jersey as a precedent and following a lot of the same things. So it's working right now, and it's worked from the casino standpoint on a state by state. I think everyone's pretty happy with the status quo. We've learned how we have to just make sure we understand each individual market and operate in it, but nobody's looking for federal oversight.
And it's probably not, once you've got so many different states with established legislation already, and it'd be really hard to go backwards, wouldn't it, to square one, to start over federally.
Yeah.
You mentioned DraftKings. Are DraftKings and FanDuel, are they your competitors? Are they in the same business? Or how do they differ from what you do?
Yeah, they're actually really good competitors. You know, being at ESPN and ABC for all those years, and then working for NBC, I will tell you, having a good competitor makes you even better. And I think they're great competitors. They're different competitors from each other, where FanDuel is a little bit closer to our business, where they have a European parent company who's been in the business. We've been in business 86 years, and Paddy Power, or their new name is Flutter, as a parent company, owns FanDuel. And so, really good competitor in terms of having that European history, and has learned a lot from being around for a long time. DraftKings is a little bit different. Their news this week, they went public this week, doing a merger with Scientific Games so that they have a lot more of their tech stack that they'll start to own. We've been really the only one in the market that has owned our own technology, which we think is a huge advantage, to be able to not be beholden to a third-party company for features and functionality. But DraftKings and FanDuel have done a great job before we were on the scene in the US of getting a big database of customers, because they were in the daily fantasy business. And the other set of folks that we compete with is the casino partners. So the BetMGMs of the world, who also have a big database. So relationships for us, like with CBS Sports, helps us get that database to compete better with both the daily fantasy side of the DraftKings and FanDuel, and on the casino side, like the MGMs of the world.
Now, do you see, you have a kind of a dual role with the casinos, in that you're partnered with some casinos, and yet people can bet at casinos or through casinos and not bet through you?
Yes.
Is this a love-hate relationship, or is it all everybody working together symbiotically?
Yeah, for us, it's actually really good. Well, we're 80% owned by William Hill, but we're also 20% owned by Eldorado Gaming, who's in the process of buying Caesars. and owns brands that you may know like Tropicana, and Isle and all of those. So obviously we are very casino friendly. We feel like our differentiator is that we are in 200 plus sports books across the US, and that when people can, you know, my boss keeps calling it anti-social distancing versus social distancing. It's very anti-social what we're doing right now. But as soon as people can be back into the sports book again, we believe it's an amazing experience. It's what we tried to create with ESPN Zones back in the day of the ultimate sports bar where you want to go with your friends and you have 500 TVs and odds boards and great food and beverage. And that experience is amazing. And sports is supposed to be this communal experience. And then when you don't have that and you're on your couch, you can use your app to bet. But we think having both of it is a huge advantage. And that's why we've built out relationships with our casino partners to really build that best-in-class sports book. And we work with them to market the app as well too. And we look at it as it is one of our strategic advantages. There's a human behind what we do. We're not just a mobile device.
Well, when you talk about it socially, the betting is to show that you want to win because you're smarter, because you figured it out, because if you prove to yourself that you're smarter, it's just not the same sort of experience, right?
Oh yeah, you need some smack talk there. Yeah, 100%.
So when sports resume, what is it that you're expecting in the way of increases in gambling, in betting?
It was the biggest NFL draft we've ever had. We never really, it was just an inkling to show that everyone just needed the draft, right? And I think we are expecting consumers to come back in a really big way. And I don't know if you remember, but back in the day at ESPN, we had a brand campaign called Without Sports, is because we couldn't imagine a world without sports. And I would have never in my entire career imagined that there would be no US sports playing right now. And I think people now realize how much it played a role in their life. And we believe it's going to come back bigger than ever before. We do think it's going to come back on mobile, bigger than retail in the beginning, just because of I think the slow time it's going to take to recover for the casinos, especially in the state of Nevada. But I think people are going to be more excited and are going to want to try out their knowledge. And we're going to be in more states that have legalized while the hiatus, as we call it, has happened. So,
do you think that more states are going to be more apt to legalize as this economic downturn starts to really hit their total revenue for the year? Are they going to be looking at revenue from sports books as a possible supplement to increase revenues? What do your legal folks look for?
I hope so. I think we're hearing things like Michigan is they may try to early up some of the things that they were going to do, and we certainly hope so. And we're there. In some ways, it actually has been nice. It's been state by state because it allowed us and others to be ready for a full rollout in other states. So we feel ready now. So bring it on. Especially New York.
Where have you
need mobile in New York.
You need mobile in New York, you said?
New York, yeah. Only the upstate casinos are allowed to take sports betting right now, and New York is not legalized, and your state of Connecticut is not legalized either. So we would love to see those states come online.
So the folks are heading upstate, or folks are when they could get over to the New Jersey line?
It's New Jersey. We see on the George Washington Bridge the exact line where people cross over and they're betting. They would ride their bikes over. We see it between Philly and New Jersey, Pennsylvania and New Jersey as well. But, and in some of the other markets and Iowa and Illinois, a lot of border betting, people crossing over and coming back.
Now you mentioned having the first in-arena sports. Where's that going to be, and what's that going to make it possible for fans to do there?
Oh, it's going to be great. We're in Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C., and we are actually street level where you can come in anytime and feel free. We have a a great restaurant operator that we're about to announce. It's going to be amazing food and beverage in there. It will be the ultimate sports bar, restaurant, sports book. And then at the concourse level, for NHL games, you can go in and out of the concourse, place a bet, go back to your seat, use your mobile phone in the arena to place a bet. We'll have kiosks in there as well. And for NBA games, you can come in and out of the book, but you need to go around a little bit and outside in again, but hoping that will change at some point. But we will be a two-story, huge, it'll be the biggest square footage sports book that we'll have in the US, right in the arena itself. So really exciting.
Is that part of your long-term plan, is to have more of these on-site betting parlors, betting tents? I remember covering the Australia Open for years, and in Australia, it wasn't hidden at all. You went out of one court and you came out to this huge betting tent, and you could go in there and bet who was going to have the most aces that day, or let alone. Is that your goal, is to have more on-site?
We would love it. It's really up to the state regulations. So the only two states that have allowed it today, obviously Washington, D.C., and Illinois is also looking at it for their teams as well. Illinois is about to be a regulated legal state. But the more states that allow it and the economics work for us, we'd love to do it. But it all depends on state regulations and how the structure works. Regulations in every state are different of how you could be legal and how you get licensed. So,
but going back to how bet can benefit sports, do the Washington teams that play there at Capital One, are they excited about this being yet another draw to bring people to the game live in person?
Yeah, when you look at, like the Wizards, fun team, but not maybe as competitive as the Capitals are, it does increase engagement, which is great. But it's also Ted Leonsis, who owns the team, is a visionary in terms of tech. And for him, he keeps looking at all the different ways that you want to engage fans all season long. And this is going to be, we keep talking about when there is a great cricket game going on, somewhere around the world, we can be open at whatever hour in the morning and gather all the cricket fans from Washington, D.C., such a great international market. It will be the place that people gather, and it's what you talk about. And just making it legal and regulated is safer for everyone. We know people are doing it anyway. So we just think this is the future, to have that kind of fun around sports and engagement all year long.
What do you see for the future of the sports betting industry here in the United States?
I think that, the biggest thing is that it's been a black market for so long. So it's kind of had this ding on it, versus in all other countries around the world, it's just part of culture. So I think we're excited of just being more culturally accepted. There's still we still can't advertise in the NFL. We still can't get clearance on major broadcast networks because it's, this dark category. So we see it just being more accepted in the industry, and we see it as such a big industry that's going to fund a lot of jobs and make a lot of consumers have a really good diversion to all the other things going on in the world.
Do you see further consolidation? Are there small players out there that will get gobbled up by the big organizations? Or do you see more diversification because of state by state? What are the possibilities there?
I think we're too early to tell. And so many of the analyst reports didn't plan a global pandemic in the middle of all of it as well. I think we're yet to see. I think that there's going to be some states that are going to be like New Jersey, which are going to be highly competitive. Colorado, Tennessee, I think are going to be really, really competitive. And there's other states that aren't allowing as many licenses. And I think in those, there's going to be a couple of leaders in that space that, we believe we're going to be one of them. But I think it's too early to tell. This was growing. And even just 2-3 months ago, I don't think we could have ever imagined where we all are right now. So
you talked about the advantage of William Hill having its own technology. And we've got a lot of students who are very interested in technology. What is it that people don't see that doesn't necessarily have a William Hill name on it that you are involved with in the back of the scenes?
So in Europe, a lot of the model is that there's a company called OpenBet, and they do a lot of the features and functionality. So if you come up with an idea, like a popular feature is cash out. If you get nervous about that your bet that you maybe made a mistake and you don't want to keep going anymore, you can cash out early. That feature, you come up with that idea and you don't own your technology. Once you come up with that idea, then that company gives everyone that feature and functionality. So you don't really have a differentiator. We believe by having our own tech stack, we get to be able to innovate on features. We get to take a lot of the friction out of the process. It is still more like a financial transaction. You're dealing with your money, you're dealing with your data. You want someone that knows how to keep it safe, and you want to be able to withdraw and deposit your money when you want to. And that we feel having the control over that, we're going to be able to do that really well.
And that sounds like one of the reasons that people would go with a longer company than with a smaller company. The safety in when you've inserted your card, where you've inserted your card, that you're not going to be taken advantage of, or that your money is safe.
Yeah, the trust factor is the number one thing.
Is that part of your marketing?
It is part of our marketing. We use 86 years a lot. We use the image of William Hill a lot. He believed very much in responsible gaming, and it's a huge part of what we talk about. Our CEO publicly talks about that he grew up in a problem gambling household, and it's one of the reasons it's really important for him that this is legalized, and that it's one of the things that we take very seriously is how to make sure we do all of this responsibly and our consumers can do it responsibly.
And is that the societal impact of a lot of people betting a lot of money? That is a concern, right? Because if problem gambling can be part of the bad publicity that you want to avoid, correct?
It's the perception of it, but it's not the case. Actually having it regulated protects consumers. Because what happens is there's certain things like a self-exclude list where you can tell us like, look, I don't want to be contacted anymore. I don't want to be part of this. And we share that with all the other sports betting operators. You can set limits on our app to say, cut me off when I've spent this much or I've spent this much time. So having it legal and regulated, a bookie on the street corner doesn't do that. But having it legal and regulated, we can make sure that we protect consumers.
Now, where are there opportunities down the road in the near term and in the little bit longer term for our sport management students, our students with sport backgrounds, our students who they want to get into the sports industry? What is going to be at William Hill?
I would love anyone who wants to learn Google Analytics, tagging, measurement, any of that. We would like them tomorrow. We have a lot of needs on those entry-level positions are really about tracking and measurement and a lot of the analytics, because we believe that if you go through the analytics and you understand the consumer and you understand the data, that's the great basis for a start of a career. So those kind of skill sets are really good. Digital content is still going to be a huge currency. I was on a meeting yesterday with counterparts that were CMOs from all different sports leagues around the world. And they said the number one thing they're doing during this time for revenue is digital content. We're all trying to produce enough. We've been producing a lot of volumes on how to bet table tennis. You know, people don't know that stuff. So all that kind of stuff is really, really, digital content is going to be huge. And then on the analytics side of things, more the money ball, we look at our wagering data, we cut our wagering data, and we send out our wagering data from a PR standpoint. So people who know how to take a look at huge amounts of data, statistically analyze it, and being able to storytell from it, all of those work streams are going to be really, really important for today.
Now, are the people go to williamhill.com for that kind of content, that kind of storytelling, or how are you sharing those stories with the public?
Yeah, we push a lot out through social media. You know, it's much more of a push out, a lot on Twitter and Facebook. We also, that's how our relationship with ACBS Sports or even ESPN or local publications, they really like to take that data and analysis, and it enhances the sports story as well. So large amount of that goes out from a PR standpoint too.
Now, what career path you to become the chief marketing officer for William Hill, a company started in England in 1834? That would be educational for some of our students as to how that happened.
Yeah, you know, I graduated from Ithaca College, so not far from Syracuse, made my way back to New York City and worked at one of the big ad agencies. So Ogilvy and Mather, big Madison Avenue agency. Had a great job out of school, and I hated it more than anything in the whole world. I was so happy to be at Ogilvy, but I was really bored with what I was doing. And there was a woman who sat outside my little cubicle who laughed all day, and she seemed to love what she did. And so I went in there one night and asked her what she did. And she told me she was starting a brand new department at Ogilvy, which was going to evaluate all of these things that were non-traditional, advertising in grocery stores and in airports and in sports arenas. And so I thought that was the best thing. I was a huge sports fan, and I made her a deal that I could help her start her department. At the age of 22, we would double the revenue in a year, and if not, she can get rid of me. And if we did, then I would have this job for longer. And for some reason, they took me up on it. And we not only doubled the revenue, but we tripled the revenue. I was actually buying huge amounts of signage in sports arenas and evaluating it for companies like American Express, including doing a lot of sponsorship at Madison Square Garden, which was foreshadowing for ending up there years and years later. But that analysis work and the non-traditional things we were evaluating helped set me up for, we had this one day client, IBM, came to us and said, we have this thing, it's really non-traditional. You have to fly to San Francisco to go see it. And we flew to San Francisco, and it was an ad on a computer, and it was the internet. So we started to buy internet advertising for IBM, developed a whole capability at Ogilvy, and then I was recruited away to a digital agency that was getting started to help Fortune 500 companies set up their websites. So we were building a website for Delta so that you could convince people you could buy plane tickets on the internet and things like that. Did that for 8 years. And then Leanne Daly, who headed up marketing for ESPN, wanted a digital person to help ESPN get more digital in marketing, and recruited me away, ended up at ESPN. 8 years, worked for a guy named Salil Mehta, who was amazing. He got recruited to NBC. I followed him. And then I was itching after 6 years at NBC. I was working for a lot of talent at NBC, and there were a lot of changes going on. I got recruited to go work on my favorite teams in the whole world, the Knicks and the Rangers, and went over to Madison Square Garden for 3 years, and amazing. But when I was at Ithaca College, I spent a semester at the Ithaca College London Center, knew the William Hill brand really well, fell in love with sports betting from my days of ESPN News and ESPN Insider. And when William Hill called me and said, we think this is going to go legal, you have a chance to start a brand new marketing department in the US with a brand that's coming to the US and a brand new industry, I was like, done. And so I've been there almost 2 years. And the theme of it is the road not taken, right? Of just following some opportunities along the way. And it's been a fun ride.
The great lesson there is that first step that you took across the threshold into that woman's office, just to curiously ask, why are you happy? And I try to get that lesson across a lot of students is having enough courage to step across a threshold and say, boy, looks like what you're doing is great fun. I'd love to help. That it's just, and if you hadn't asked that question, your life would have been completely different, right?
Completely different. And I felt like I didn't know coming out of college what these jobs were and what you literally did every day and how to have fun doing it. And I felt like I had such a good education in Ithaca, but I really didn't know literally what you do in these jobs. And it was find great mentors along the way, and that has certainly helped out.
I like telling the story about George Bodenheimer, who was the longtime president of ESPN, who out of Denison College came to ESPN as a driver working in the mailroom.
Yeah.
And it was his curiosity asking people that he drove Vital and engaging in conversations. Talk about not knowing the jobs. George Bodenheimer gets to ESPN. He didn't know what affiliate marketing was. He wound up as vice president of affiliate marketing, you know, and moved from there to added sales and became president of the company. And it was all piping up and asking some questions and engaging people, right?
Still true today. Still figuring it out.
So what good bet? What would you say is a good bet? Is there somebody who's killing it in ping pong, or are people betting on when the U.S. opens up again, or what's a good bet?
That's a good bet. I think that's a good bet of when these sports are going to come play again. You know, there's so many rumors going out there. There was a rumor yesterday that the NBA wasn't going to open up at all, you know, and then LeBron tweets out late at night, it's a rumor. We called the NBA. It's a rumor. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of just what is going to happen over the next year, and how does the fan experience change, right? Like the whole part of going into the building and sitting in section 116 with everyone you have for many years and sharing that season ticket experience, it's definitely going to change until there's a vaccine. So I think it's going to be, people are going to have to be very creative of how we get people together and enjoy the sports again. But if 9/11 told us anything about sports, is that sports signifies normalcy. And as Americans, we need to get them back playing again for all of it. So
I think a thing is that once sports returns, there's going to be a gigantic ramp up and great opportunities for these young people who are graduating right now into an economy that is dormant. And do you see a lot of needs all happening at once?
I think a lot of needs all happening at once. And I think the advantage of graduating now into some of these jobs is that companies aren't going to want to pay the high salaries. They're actually going to want to pay the entry-level salaries. So I do think in some ways that's the advantage of all of it. There's going to be industry. As soon as sports comes back and people bet on their phones, our revenue comes back. You know, there's certain industries like the connected fitness industry with Peloton and all of that. They're going to continue to do well in the space. It's finding those right niche opportunities, but also I think, like, you know, some of what I did of, you're going to take a job and you're going to figure out what you really like to do once you're in it. And you got to be problem solving, asking questions, trying to find all the alternative ways that you can be creative and get to a place where you spend enough time at work, you got to love what you do. So you don't want to give that up just because of this too shall pass, right?
This has been really interesting and really educational for me. And also, thanks so much for spending your bit of your afternoon with us. And I also want to thank of students showing the initiative at university to continue these webinars going forward.
Yeah.
One is at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So we hope everybody who's out there listening, this one will come back. This is the third in a series, and great credit to all of those. And thanks again, Sharon, for sharing your sites and some great stories.
And feel free to link into me. I was actually going to bring our recruiter up to Syracuse so everyone could meet our recruiter and they can get to know him. So feel free to go on to LinkedIn and link into me, and happy to help any which way I can.
We sure appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You too.